The Bloodline Invaders series, the final chapter, the light door opens. Just a little personal comment here that I'm inserting as the author is the fact that this has been an ongoing discovery for myself. And the reason why I started the Bloodline Invaders series was because of the questions I had all since my youth of particularly who I am. What is my purpose? What am I really here to do? What is the real reason? What am I that I'm supposed to accomplish? And for decades, I believed in my religion. I did. Believed in the God that they taught me about, believed in the Savior that they told me about the name, and when I found out that they couldn't even get the name right, well, that began a journey. But there were many other questions that I had all through my walk in Christianity. And as I became more aware, and I tell people all the time, they said, well, why did you leave Christianity? And I said, well, I checked out the references and it didn't work. I mean, I got saved when I was 12, right? That's when I stood up and, again, by the way, this is not scriptural. You are never to ask anything into your heart. So this nonsense of asking Jesus into your heart is not biblical. There's no scriptural foundation at all. In fact, it's been proven to be very dangerous. Because when you're asking something to come in to possess you, yeah, you really need to find out where that actually originated from. So as I started studying, and one of the biggest regrets I have was that I never studied to the extent that I am now in my youth. I accepted my religion, my faith, on faith. Because after all, why would they teach me wrong, right? Well, we all know that there is a lot wrong. And in fact, it's not that I am so anti-Christian, it's that I am anti-religion. Years and years, decades now, of studying and finally studying other religions, getting an understanding of the cultures, beginning to think like a first century man. And that's one of the things when you get into philosophy you have to really do. And if we would apply that same methodology to our religious beliefs, I don't believe that the world would now be held hostage, bondage to the world religions. And so the Bloodline Invaders series was started to find out, where did this start? Why are we the way we are? Why are we as a species so inherently that it seems like we're pre-programmed that we must have a religion, that we must give servitude to some God? And as I found out, and as you followed the series, you now know that there is something behind all this. And so The Light Door Opens is an appropriate title for this, the final chapter of the Bloodline Invaders. I thank you for watching it. There will be other videos. Trust me. I have been able to have the privilege of seeing beyond the light door, and it's wonderful. All right, folks, here we go. The 10,000 gods the world worships. Yeah, it seems like an absurd number, right? And an absolute ludicrous statement to make. 10,000 gods? Wayne, are you just out of your mind? I've been accused of that a lot. But as Sheldon says, my mother had me tested. So, and by the way, I tested out in the very high end. So anyway, but it is true, and I'm going to prove it to you. So, take a look at this. Stop and just use the word Sheila. Stop. Quiet your mind. You don't have to go anywhere. Look at this. Because what you're looking at are galaxies. And within these galaxies are billions of stars that have even more billions of planets that I believe have trillions of souls. Yes, souls just like us. When you begin to accept the fact that the Earth is not the first planet ever to be created, as I speak, there are planets being created, forming all over this galaxy. And that is the universe you're looking at. Those are the heat signatures of galaxies. So we're not the first. When you can begin to finally get past your cognitive dissonance and begin to understand that the Earth is one of billions others out there with trillions of souls, it begins to take a little bit more of a reality foundation, right? So you have to understand that there's a lot that the 21st century Homo sapiens species has been lied to, misled, and has been incorporated into the species belief systems. There are those who live on the surface, and there are those who live below the surface. So, now this is my theory. So everything going forward in this next little section is my theory. And it could be completely wrong, or it could have foundation of reality, fact, who knows? So, the world, when it began to finally coalesce and things got where they were, there was one continent. It was named Pangaea. Now, I believe that there were 10 who came and they divided the earth. These 10 are still here today. They mask themselves in many different forms, but they are still worshipped. They need our species worship. We provide them an energy, and believe it or not, they in return can replenish and even add to the energy. Example, you ever talk to any of the rock stars? I knew a couple back in the 70s, some of the really big bands. And every one of them told me that it was almost like a religious ceremony, that before they get out, they could sense this enormous energy. And of course, when they got out, they would obviously empty themselves of their energy into what they were doing, but they got it back. Very strange. So there was a first cataclysm. There are records, even within the Bible, that talks about the beaded necklace, which is the asteroid belt, that there is evidence that there was another planet here. Some think Tiamat. I don't know, but there's good evidence to show that there was a planet here, and it was struck. I happen to think it was struck by an asteroid. Now, when you look at this particular graph, it shows you what the world, the earth, looks like without water. Now, as you see coming up on the west coast, right there in the Pacific Ocean, I think that that is the area that was hit by the initial asteroid. And you can see that our planet shows signs of being pummeled, folks, many times. But I believe that this one right there is what started the first cataclysm. And this subsequently had a pole reversal. So what happened? And in fact, we now see that in the strata. After the asteroid, what was one continent now became two. Pangaea split into Laurasia and Gondwana. Now, this was during the Triassic period of time. And the question I have, these were great masses, land masses. That we know that there were animals there. The question is, were there people there? I believe that there were. Were there people up in Laurasia? I believe that there were. There was just out yesterday a new white paper on the fact that they now believe that the human beings were not in Africa, were not in the Middle East, but Europe. Who knows, huh? But the answer to the question is yes, there were people there. Emphatically, we know that there were people there. Listen, our species and the species before us go back millions of years, folks. You're just going to have to deal with that at some point. Then, there appeared in the nighttime sky a great comet. Now, this comet, the outflow of it the illumination was larger than our solar system. Not the comet itself, but the outflow from it. And the second cataclysm hit. This time, man recorded the events. This is a replica of a stone that was found in Medo-Persia. And it documents the fact that this event happened. When this event happened and the comet hit, we experienced another pole reversal. Now, any of you who have done your study on pole reversals, you know they are cataclysmic events. And the written record shows that it did happen. Now, my question is that when we begin to see multiple written records, these are the Emerald Tablets, speak of the same thing, you have to begin to ask yourself, well, if we have multiple records of an event from all over the world where these cultures could have never talked, it only leads to the fact that there was a deluge. And after the comet, I think it was the comet that caused the deluge. Now, you can put all the esoteric and theology you want to put behind it, but I'm just talking about the events, the physical events. So is this the post-world flood? I believe it is. And I believe that this is where it was divided up. I believe as well as the continents began to settle down. And as you can see in this graph here, I thought was interesting because it actually gives you the population of each one of the continents. Now, folks, there's some wide open property open down in Antarctica. Less than 4,500 people. There you go. But nevertheless, this is us. This is what we have done. Now, each region had their own gods. Anyone who does comparative religious studies will tell you that every region had its own gods, just the way it was. Goes back before the flood. We are now, listen, here's the point to all this, folks. As we have increased in knowledge, as we began to build machines and technology began to eclipse all the millennia of past humans, we began to get more tools. We began to see further under the ground. We began to see further above the stars. This led to new knowledge. And this is the problem most people are having, particularly those who are heavily religious based. They cannot get it into their head that our technology and our knowledge now supersedes our superstitions and our beliefs. It's just the way it is, folks. Now, this continent, South America, by far the strangest. We're going to get into that. Australia, the oldest. The Aborigines. I call them the original people. They were of such cut off from everything else. I swear they had to be created by one of these other gods. And as you know, the Egyptians are record of going down there so they could gain the knowledge the Aborigines had. Think about that. One continent that there is no recorded record of any god. Antarctica. However, I believe this has been by design. So, again, everywhere I studied, there are ancient gods. Everywhere, folks. I'm going to take you to a website where you can actually see most of them. And you'll see that there's over 10,000 gods. There is a history that we were taught. Now, I had here because of Kublai Khan, because it's very important. This individual, much like many of his predecessors, and immediately comes to mind is Alexander the Great. They changed history, folks. The history was rewritten. And remember, history is recorded by the victors, those who dominate and those who rule. One of the things that particularly in the Americas that we have completely forgotten is that there were a people here way before the white man came, way before the black man, the brown man, way before any of that. They lived here. They had their own religion, their own beliefs, their own tribal customs, and it is tribal. What you have to remember is that the past, all of our ancestors came up through tribes and the tribal nation. There was a rich culture here that the Christians, and I do say the Christians, obliterated. Wasn't the Jews, wasn't the Muslims, wasn't the Buddhists, it was the Christians. And what they did here is a stain of blood upon the foundation of the Christian church. The tribes of the Indian nations were genocide. It's the way it is, folks. Separate, but now shared. Every culture that I am studying today is being forced into a world shared belief systems. And no matter how far you want to go back into the history, you will find that indigenous people had their own belief systems, their own cultures, and their own societal laws. And even in where we have so much conflict today, where much of the myth says that this was the cradle of where man was created, and it is a myth, until we can find solid evidence, it's a myth. It's a theory. It's a hypothesis. It's a religion. You get it? But one thing I did find, there is substance to principalities. In fact, those 10, I believe, are today much of the principalities that exist. They never went away, folks. They never did. We talked as well, I did videos on this, on the migration of the family tree of the DNA of man. And we now know that there are multiple species occupying the same ground. They're not related. This has been proven true. And it blows a lot of the religious theology out of the water. They're still trying to recover from it. They won't. Because now man's knowledge now supersedes his beliefs. It's just that simple. We know as well that the original people, the indigenous people of the Americas, that came over from Asia. We know before the Great Flood that there was a natural land bridge. Now, I've read that some suspect that this may have happened within the last, 10, 20,000 years. We do know the world weather is changing. And so here, pick your spot, because somewhere on this map, you originated. Your ancestors came from. This is why all of us are so much into now, we want to know what our ancestral background is. And you're going to see that this is having a bigger impact on us as a species today. So how many current gods do the world worship? Well, today, 10,000 plus gods are worshipped worldwide. Even in Christianity, when you think that there are over 30,000 worldwide denominations associated to Christianity, and now Christianity is really becoming Christendom, it begs to answer the question, why 30,000 divisions? We're going to get into this. So, 2016, 7.5 billion world population estimated. My question is, are we coming into a one world God or a one God world? Are we being forced, even unconsciously, to be classified into a religious belief? Why? Why? Now, this is cool. As you can see, there are different countries, different ethnic groups on here. This website, which you're about to see, shows all of these different religions. Now, this is a great website. I'd encourage you, if you really enjoy studying, really do the deep dives like I do, I can't get enough of it now. I'm at that point in my life where I have this insatiable yearning for knowledge, understanding, and this website I came across, and it's fabulous. So they have taken the time to go in and to list every god, demigod, as you can see, heroes, symbols, other mythological characters, all originating. And in Africa alone, there's over 2,000. I'm just going to do it real quick. As you can see, it just goes on and on for page after page. And you can do the same thing. Here's Asia. You can see the Asian gods. You can go in here in the Buddhist. You can see how the Buddhists are. You can go into the Egyptians. Anything you want on here. And it's a great, great resource. Gives you good collaborating other information to back up what they have. So I encourage you, I'll leave the link, but check it out. You really will enjoy that. So here, we're going to do a little quick study on the world religions. And I believe that when you get to the end of this, you're going to see how this ties in to part 2 and 3. So here are just 10 of the major world religions, Daoism all the way to Daoism, thank you, all the way to Christianity. And we're going to get into more of this. So this came from the Pew Research Center. And what I did here is that this is projecting out to the year 2050 and seeing the world population and the major world religions in their growth and the estimated amount of world followers. I found this one even more compelling. Again, from the Pew Research Center. This one is now projecting out to the year 2050 using the major religions and seeing who is going to grow and who is going to recede. The unaffiliates, of which I consider myself, and there are many of us being added to this number every day. You're going to see that in the next 30 years that it has by far the largest growth. Literally 61.5 million people will become unaffiliated. Islam will continue to grow. You can see there to about 12.6 billion. We go here as well, folk religion. One of the things here about folk religion that I read was interesting was that as more and more people begin to turn back to their ancestral roots, they're looking at their ancestral belief systems, and many are adapting to these much older folk religions. Other religions, which are being born all the time, are continuing to grow. And you can see the Hindus, they have a modest growth. The Jewish population in religion is significant. And listen, I really do think a lot of this has to do with low birth rate. Not only is Israel facing this, many industrialized nations. Japan is on the critical list, and in fact, now the United States is as well. Buddhists, you're going to see, lose about 3 million, but look at what happens to Christianity. Nearly, look at that, 66 million leaving the belief. And I think that it has to do with the schisms. We never talk about this, but you know, one of the things that I talked about this more in Bible school and in my studies, that getting to an understanding why Christianity is fractured, and it's because of the schisms. When you begin, a schism is this. I see so many people say, well, I have nothing to do with the Catholics. Yes, you do. If you're a confessing Christian, they are your foundation. You can reject it all you want, but it's just the reality. Your house is built on their foundation. And when the great schisms began to take place, it was because of a difference of fundamental beliefs. And then you had a breakaway. Well, the breakaways have become so rampant now that I dare say that within the next 2 generations, I doubt Christianity will look like anything that I saw it as. And this just kind of brings up the point. And look at this, non-Trinitarian. It's part of Christianity, Christendom. This is the thing. So Christianity is changing into Christendom, becoming a world religion. Oh, I just thought I'd throw this in this as well. So we now know the majority of the population realize that humans have evolved over time. That this crazy idea that we've only been here for 6,000 years and, you know, yeah, as I tell everyone, explain the RH factor, please. We'll move on. Every deity appears to have a covenant with a human, and it must be signed with DNA. And that's typically blood, although semen can be used and other bodily fluids, but typically the preferred way is blood. Think about that. So we're going to go real quick in the top 10 religions, and we're going to just see how all of this amalgamation of religion, belief systems, separate and diverse, are yet coalescing into one. See where it seems to be heading. So you can see that Cao Dao is a Vietnam religion. Actually, pretty one. There actually is two. One out of Vietnam, another one out of India. I really like this. It's basically amalgamation of Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Islam, and Daoism. And I really like the fact that what these people believe, they believe in the existence of one supreme being, as I do, regardless of whatever label or name that you want to put onto it. Other religions have chosen to impose names on this central deity. They also believe in the concept of universal justice, love, peace, and tolerance. Nothing wrong with that. I got to tell you what, and I'm just be honest with you. I don't trust most Christians. Don't even like doing business with them because they've all proven to be untrustworthy. All of them. These are some of the symbols that is incorporated. And you can see, particularly in here, how they have really incorporated a lot of the beliefs of many other beliefs. Okay, so Shinto, 10 million followers, primarily in Korea. Here, their high deities are females. They're known as mundangs and are typically females who function as to serve the intermediaries between the gods and the human beings. And listen, intermediaries is a common component that is in all religions. Now, this religion believes in the existence of ghosts, spirits, and gods and are believed to inhabit the spirit world. Good foundation to that. I can't fault that one. Here is some of the symbolism that they use. This is in their temple. And again, I love the dragon. The serpent. Yeah, folks, put that on your hot list. Serpent. All right, Judaism. We're all familiar with Judaism. Any Christian, in fact, most people have read the story. We know where it is. Now, their belief system is not like Christians. They do not believe in the Trinity. There's a lot of things that they don't believe in. They don't believe in taking communion. They don't believe in drinking symbolically blood of another human being. They don't believe in cannibalism as symbolically eating of the body. It's offensive to them, and this is part of their faith. And these are obviously the Torah, the scrolls, the Shafron. There is as well the menorah. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, Sikhism. Now, this one primarily comes from India. Again, very recent religion, 1947. Now, this is actually spreading all over the world. Their believers are moving into Canada, the United States, as you can see. And it's, again, another growing faith. This is some of the symbolisms. One of their sheiks, the founder. All right, Daoism. Daoism. I love this. A Daoist lives in Asian countries, primarily China and Japan, South Korea and Vietnam. I really kind of like the foundation of this belief system. They are considered to be libertarians in I guess here what we would see in the United States. They prefer their preference for governments which shy away from political interference and the imposition of regulations and economic restrictions. How can you go against these guys? I mean, I want to incorporate this into every political party. Oh, that would put them out of a job, wouldn't it? Diet plays a really important part of their philosophy. They are vegans, and I tell you, very healthy belief system. And Dao means the way, the path to God. The yin and the yang, these are their symbols. This is in one of their shrines, as you can see. Shintoism, again, goes way back, back to the 8th century. Now, I didn't realize this, that 80% of the population of Japan, citizens, subscribe to Shintoism in one form or the other. There's over 80,000 shrines throughout Japan. And, this is one that I really have a lot of respect. I really enjoyed reading the foundation of this. And basically, they believe in purifying the body of the sin, the guilt, the disease, and even bad luck. Hey, listen, folks, you got bad things happen in your life, most likely you can attribute to the unseen things. And here is their shrines. Shintoism simply means the way of the gods. And here you can see their symbols. Buddhism, nearly 500,000 followers. Everyone has heard of Buddhism. It's a beautiful religion. The main tenets of Buddhist belief include nonviolence as well as moral purity and ethical behavior. Meditation, karma, and nonviolence all play major roles in the Buddhist daily life. Folks, what's wrong with that? If more of us, listen, karma, you reap what you sow. See where that goes? Yeah, I can't find a thing about this. And as you know, it's primarily in the Eastern Asia. And this is one of their shrines and one of the symbols. Hinduism, over 1 billion followers. Started out in India, and now 80% of that country's population are Hindus. And we're all well aware of today, yoga is becoming very prominent in the Western world. Thank God. If you don't practice yoga, you should. It is one of the best ways to get to know who's looking out your eyes. Yeah. And also the chakra systems. Medical science is now proving that the chakra system, in fact, is legitimate. So you ought to take some note to that. And again, their shrines and their symbols. Islam, fastest growing world religion. That's all I can say. Very strict religion. Many do's and don'ts, and divided up into two, Sunni and Shia. That's where we see many of the battles. And regardless of what you want to say about Islam, the tenets of the faith, in many ways, is meant for the spiritual guidance of the soul through this journey. And of course, we're all very familiar with that. And then Christianity. Now, we know that this was based on the teachings of the Messiah. Listen, there was no person named Jesus Christ. That is a modern rendition of what this Hebraic rabbi, Messiah's name was. And I believe that it is the responsibility of all Christian leaders, teachers, and those who continue to teach the tradition of this religion to correct the error. If you're going to name the Son of God, then use his right name. But as we've seen, this religion is in collapse. It is losing followers by the thousands each day. But the thing about it is, when you begin to see what's really happening, it's kind of scary, folks. So you now have seen the world religions. Part 2 and Part 3 are really going to kick this up. So stay tuned for them. All right, folks, we will be back real soon.